There's like you, like Shane Gillis, like Joe Rogan. You guys are also rock stars. Like I hear all about it.
Today, I was in the grocery store and I got recognized. And I said I was with Stacy, that lady you just met. And she goes, it's because you're just loud. You're just a large person. I am pretty normal, but I do like fame. And I think it's gross. Talked about that in therapy.
Really?
Yeah.
The only thing Bert Kreischer loves more than being famous and getting recognized in public is talking about being famous and getting recognized in public. And thank God he's got a podcast to discuss his fame and fortune on, otherwise none of us would know just how rich and fortunate he really is. It's also a safe space for him to talk to other rich and famous people where they can openly exchange notes and give each other advice on how to deal with being in the top 1%. But what happens when a top 250 comedy assassin meets a humble rock star?
You have no idea.
Bro went full Brendan Schaub in that one. But on the latest episode of Two Bears, One Cave, our boy Bert was flying solo with Blink-182 drummer Travis Barker, which ended up being a peach's delight thanks to their shared love of exercise, sobriety, and love of family, as well as their shared fear of flying, which I'll come to towards the end. As you can imagine, though, Bert was more interested in discussing life as a famous person because we know just how much he enjoys the perks of being a superstar comedian.
I enjoy just the idea that I could f other people.
Yeah, that's good.
Like I've never cheated on my wife, but the idea that I could,
Yeah, it's good
and
enough.
I could get pretty hot.
Yeah.
Like I kind of wish maybe I'll sign up for a Tinder just to show my wife who swipes right on me. You know how easy it would be for me, 20-year-old. I can impress her so much. Like I could just take her, put her on a private jet. She'd be like, "Whoa," and then I'd be like, "Yeah, this is what we do."
Honestly, all I can say is I'm glad Bert doesn't have young daughters who might hear him say those things. That could get really fucking weird for them, you know? But publicly creeping on 20-year-old girls at the age of 55 aside, Bert's conversation with Travis Barker was really interesting because we got to see the difference between a narcissistic, inflamed, talentless hack compared to a humble, healthy, talented artist. Alright, sorry, just before we do that though, is it just me or is Bert red as fuck again? Seriously, what is going on with him? I thought he was working out and doing ice baths like Papa Rogan told him to, cutting back on the drinking and taking his meds. Why does he look like a beetroot doused in coconut oil? And thank God somebody else noticed as well. I can feel Bert's 195/153 blood pressure through the screen. Bert went from spray tan orange to heart attack purple. Bro seriously looks like he's gonna pop every single time he laughs. He reminds me of that Violet chick from Willy Wonka who blew up like a fucking blueberry and had to get juiced by Oompa Loompas. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to comedian versus rockstar.
Do you like fame?
I don't really think about it much.
You've been famous for my whole adult life.
Like I feel like being able to throw 5Ks and raise money for like incarcerated firefighters or LAFD, I feel like that's cool. That's a cool way to use like people knowing who I am, but I don't really think of it other than that, you know? Yeah. I don't know. I'm like a dad. I hang out with my kids and I go to the studio every day and run and exercise. Like I think sometimes me and my wife were just like, we just want to be normal. Like we pretty much live a pretty normal life.
Really?
You know? Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What if you're not normal? Like, okay, because today I was in the grocery store and I got recognized and I said I was with Stacy, that lady you just met, and she goes, it's because you're just loud. You're just a large person. And I bought a bunch of steaks for my sister's birthday. The lady said, can I come to the party? And I went, yeah. And then as she left, she said, I'll see you tonight. And I said, you better show up. And then everyone looks at me and then they go, hey, Bert, what's up? Can you just go to the grocery store?
I will, but like how you handled it, like you acted normal, right?
Yeah.
You were like, oh yeah, for sure, you go to the party, whatever. I feel like that's what you do, and then they just like, oh, it's just Bert. What up, Bert? You know what I mean? People just start to treat you like you're normal and like you want to be treated.
I am pretty normal, but I do like fame, and I think it's gross. Talked about that in therapy.
Really?
Yeah.
These famous Bert stories are getting out of hand, but they're also fucking hilarious. In literally every single Two Bears episode these days, he has a new story about being recognized in public, and they're always complete bullshit. No one has ever seen Bert Kreischer out in public and spontaneously said, "What's up, Bert?" What really happened was Bert made a scene in The Butcher so everyone would notice him, and then he had to explain to them who he was. Maybe he even got his phone out and Googled himself to show them that he really actually is famous, and then asked if anybody wanted a photo with him. That's a much more believable story in my opinion. If Bert gets reincarnated, he'd probably come back as a governor's daughter who threatens the cops in a traffic stop and says the infamous line, "Do you know who I am?" before spitting racist slurs while she's resisting arrest. I don't know why I thought of that, but could you imagine if by the graces of God, Bert went on a drunken rampage and started destroying shit because nobody recognized him, and it was all caught on camera? Fuck, that would be a gift, huh? He'd still somehow try to use it as a flex though. Hey, can someone pull up that clip of me getting arrested at the airport? Anyway, I will say though, before we keep shitting on Bert, he actually did come through on this episode when Travis told a story about how Paul McCartney deals with fame. This was such a good pickup from Bert. I'm legit proud of him for this one.
I heard someone tell a story one time, and they're like, Paul McCartney was like telling a story to a certain person I know, and he was like, you know, you don't need a bunch of security, you don't need a bunch of handlers. Like if you want to go to the grocery store, start going to the grocery store every day at the same fucking time, and let the people at the grocery store get used to seeing you. Suddenly you'll do it and no one will bother you. It'll be really normal.
Yeah, but his best friend got shot.
Think of that idea though. Think if like if you
No,
don't start.
no. Actually, I love Paul McCartney.
Yeah, me too.
But that's exactly how John Lennon got murdered. Was he took the same path so the guy could find him.
Crazy.
Same time, went to did the same thing. I mean, like that's like
Wow.
crazy advice.
Yeah, that's
what happens when you're so famous. No one questions you.
Yeah,
everyone's like, "That's great advice, Paul."
I think it's just about doing. I think it's about doing stuff.
Bro got his buddy killed and then told the world about it. And Bert would know about taking unsolicited advice from somebody who's so famous that everyone just agrees with everything they say, even when they're talking absolute shit. Like I said though, that was a rare podcast W from our boy Bert. That was some Theo Von level awareness right there. But Bert really is a slave to fame. He craves it like a fat kid standing at a vending machine, sliding his coins in and punching the numbers for a soda, sweating in anticipation as he watches it slowly drop from the chute into his fat fingers. Wait, Bert actually is that fat kid. Anyway, it was all just banter between a comedian and a rock star until Travis gave Bert permission to call himself a rock star as well. Like fuck. This was seriously the last thing we needed. Now for the rest of the year, we're going to have to listen to Bert's made-up rock star stories.
Man, you're the coolest dude I've ever met. Like
Thank you.
There's a couple guys I've met in life where I go, I want that. I want a little bit of that. Looking at your eyes and like how you're just so present and grounded and just relaxed. I was like, okay, maybe there's something to being vegan. Or
There's like you, like Shane Gillis, like Joe Rogan. You guys are also rock stars. Like I hear all about it, and I hear a running theme through everything you're saying. Like it's like comedy is the new version of a rock star. Those guys are partying like rock stars. They're just as wild as rock stars. So, and it's exciting. It's exciting.
I'll tell you this:
So,
my daughters have both seen Shane Gillis live, and they didn't have the same look after seeing Blink 182.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
Bro, Shane Gillis catching strays on an episode of Two Bears One Cave is absolutely fucking wild. For those of you who are new here, Bert has a complicated relationship with Shane. On the one hand, they're buddies who hang out all the time and smash Bud Lights together, but the dirty side of the Austin comedy circle jerk is that Shane has become so famous that most of these guys are now living in his shadow. I don't think any of Rogan's comedians have ever been in a Super Bowl ad, and that's probably about to change. Don't get me wrong, there's no beef or anything going on, but just listen to the way Bert tells this next story. He's so fucking transparent that it's like listening to a toddler. He starts off by humble bragging that he's been doing comedy for almost 30 years, and then goes straight into a story about how his daughter saw a Shane Gillis special before he was famous, like 3 or 4 years ago. You guys will see how it ends, but this isn't the first time that Bert has hinted that he knew Shane before he was famous and helped bring him up by putting him on his tour, etc. So on the one hand, Bert's obviously jealous of Shane's fame right now, but he also praises him while giving himself credit for helping him become famous.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I love it. But you know, much like you getting into drums just because that was your thing and you were better at that than skating. It's like I got into comedy, you know, in like 97, 90, probably 99, 98. And I just got into it because I like it. There was no career in it.
Yeah,
like,
you're just funny as
it's not what it was. It wasn't what it is today. Isn't what it was then. It's cool to watch your kids. Like watch my oldest daughter Georgia saw Shane for the first time, and this has got to be like 4 years ago. It was before he was famous, and he had this great joke. It's now in one of his specials about going to a old plantation, a reenactment plantation, and the black guy coming up, and it's in his bit. I'm not going to do the bit, but it's pretty aggressive and it's pretty hilarious. She heard it and was like, she's a little woke, and she went, "Ooh." I said, "What?" She goes, "You're not allowed to say that." I was like, "Why not? Why not?" She goes, "You get in trouble." I go, "Did you think it was funny?" She's like, "Yeah, but I can't laugh at that, can I?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "You can laugh at that?" And I was like, "Yeah, baby, that's the whole point of comedy is like, you got to push the boundaries." The next night, her and her friend Daisy are crying, laughing. Next thing you know, all the girls are back at our house and Shane's Beautiful Dogs comes out. 15 girls in our screening room and they're watching Beautiful Dogs. 15
That's
girls
great.
Watching Beautiful Dogs, and they're like, "He's the GOAT." And I was like, I got specials on there too, girls.
Yeah. No, it is, but like.
By the way, Beautiful Dogs came out in September of 2023, around 18 months ago. I don't know why he's saying this happened 3 to 4 years ago, before Shane was famous. Whenever Bert talks about Shane, he's got to remind everyone that he's been around for decades, whereas Shane's only just come up. But speaking of Bert's career, he actually provided the best metaphor I could have ever asked for to explain how he got so famous and started selling out half-filled arenas. If this isn't the perfect representation of Bert's career, I honestly don't know what is.
Can I show you something?
Yeah.
Last night. Look, you guys can edit this out if you want. I don't give a fuck. Last night we did Tony Hawk and Jason Ellis's podcast.
Oh, cool.
Live. I know both of them very well, and I said to Jason Ellis, I said to Tony one time, I want to learn how to ollie. I'm a big skateboarder, but I never learned how to ollie. And once you learn how to ollie, you really open the door to a lot of fun in skateboarding. But and I'm too old, so they brought a board on stage. Okay, so this is last night. Now, mind you, Tony Hawk has always told me I can get you to ollie in 5. If you give me 5 minutes, I can get you to ollie.
Whoa.
Okay. The first one you'll see is my weak ass ollie. Okay. So that's me on the board. By the way, I'm pretty drunk. Okay. And then that's my attempt at an ollie. Now, Tony Hawk says, "Okay, let me help you. 52, never ollied in my life. Take a look." Dude, I fucking ollied.
And I saw the first one.
Yeah. And
you're drunk.
And I'm drunk.
Wow. That's crazy.
Dude, I woke up this morning and I texted him and Jason. And I said, I woke up a different man. I ollie.
Bro, you didn't even fucking land it. You stacked it and the skateboard went flying. How is that a fucking ollie? He couldn't do one by himself, so Tony fucking Hawk holds him while he tries again. He still fucks it up, falls over, then gets up and hugs Tony Hawk like he just won an Oscar for the Machine movie. By the way, did you catch that Bert was drunk? I don't know if he mentioned that bit. But like I said, that is the perfect metaphor for Bert's whole career. He tells the Machine story to Rogan once. He thinks it's the funniest story ever. He tells Bert it's amazing and he should keep telling that story, even though it's not funny and there's no actual punchline. And then a bunch of degenerates laugh hysterically every time he takes his shirt off on stage and tells that stupid story. What are we doing here, B? Now, for those of you who don't know, Bert has a chronic fear of flying. He talks about it in almost every episode and how he can't get on a plane without drinking, but in one of the most Bert Kreischer moments I've ever seen, he actually tries to one-up Travis Barker's fear of flying with his own story. Yeah, this is actually crazy. So if you didn't know, back in 2008, Travis was in a plane that was taking off when the tire blew out, so the pilots had to abort the takeoff, but they were going too fast and the jet overran the runway, crashing through the airport fence across a highway, and then it burst into flames. Both pilots died, Travis's personal assistant died, and so did his bodyguard. Only him and his buddy Adam, aka DJ AM, survived, except Adam would then die a year later from a drug overdose. But Travis didn't come out unscathed. He suffered burns to 70% of his body. He was hospitalized for 11 weeks. He had over 30 skin graft surgeries and developed severe PTSD, depression, and he refused to fly for over 10 years after the incident. The guy literally would catch a cruise ship to meet his band to do gigs 2 weeks before it started. He even sued the aircraft company and settled with them a year later. It wasn't all bad news though, because the crash helped him to get sober and get healthy again. He started running, eating well, and he dug himself out of a hole eventually. And so with all of that in mind, this is what our boy Bert says to him when they're discussing his recovery from the crash and everything he's been through.
You have no idea how I've had some rough flights, and I've flown a lot. First plane flight I took, as they were taking off, I said to my mom, I said, okay, that's high enough right there. And we're taking off. She goes, honey, we're going higher. I go, no, we're good right here. We're flying. And they go, we're going real high. And when we went above the clouds, I just started panicking for the whole flight. I was terrified of flying. The last sober flight I took, I was 18 years old, and we were flying to the Virgin Islands, me and my whole family, as a graduation present to me. And my mom, this is getting into therapy shit. My dad and my sister were making fun of me because I was scared, and I started crying uncontrollably. It was terror. I was a panic attack, and they were still making fun of me. And when on our flight home, my dad took me to the bar at the hotel we were at, and I was panicking that we had to fly home. My dad goes, buddy, let's get you a couple rum runners. You'll be fine. And he bought me 2 rum runners, and I drank them. When we got to the airport, I was like, I could use like 1 more, and I should be good. He bought me 2 more. I killed them. I've never flown sober since. I've flown sober since. I've done it a couple times, but that started my problem drinking on planes.
Bert trying to trauma bond with a plane crash victim by sharing a story of how he was anxious flying in the clouds one time and needed a drink to calm down is one of the most Bert Kreischer moments I've ever seen. Bert talking about his fears of flying to someone who was in a tragic plane crash is peak Bert. Bert saying to Travis Barker, "You have no idea, I've had some rough flights," is wild. Bert really said, "I've had some rough flights, you have no idea," after Travis just explained being in a plane crash and catching on fire. Crazy. Travis Barker had some Zen-level strength to sit through all that bullshit with Bert. I actually felt bad for him while he was describing the accident and his recovery. You could tell he didn't really want to talk about it in that much detail. His whole manner just kind of changed, and it felt like he was reliving the trauma in that moment. All jokes aside though, Bert can be a tone-deaf prick sometimes. He's so fucking insufferable at the best of times, but seeing him try to empathize with Travis by saying, "You have no idea, I've had some rough flights," really does capture how much of a delusional douchebag he really is. Like, Travis was describing how long it took him to get back on a plane after the crash, and how he had setbacks that he still had to push through to this day. Bert doesn't realize saying shit like that just makes him look like a weak loser next to someone who's actually gone through personal growth after a tragedy. But hey, I guess he's a rock star now, huh? Anyway, speaking of rock stars, I just dropped a video on Patreon covering the Protect Our Parks guys on Kill Tony after their JRE appearance, so check out the link to my Patreon in the description below if you're interested. While you're here though, hit the subscribe button and make sure you give me a thumbs up if you ended up liking this video. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.
You know what I do on a 5K? I find a nice ass and I follow it.
There you go.
Dude.